Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Wolfpacker Show. Got a great show coming for you, especially if you're an NC State basketball fan. I think we can say silly season is over for NC State. I think. We'll find out for sure. We're going to talk with our guest here in a second about a lot of that and where NC State ended up, which I think is in a fairly good spot in a moment here. But first, some housekeeping items to get out of the way. First, please rate and review this podcast wherever you may get your podcasts, wherever you may download them, listen to them. We're available everywhere you get them. And for some reason, it helps us out if you rate and review them. Also, if you don't yet follow us on YouTube, please do. We're about 2,000 followers on YouTube, which is great. There's a lot of algorithms that play there that'll help us out. If you watch our videos on YouTube, we got all our podcasts there. And camp season coming up soon, so we'll have a lot of camp highlights for you to check out. And then we got football season, press conferences, player interviews, all that coming up. Please subscribe to our website. We're on 3, the fastest growing network in the world right now. I think I can confidently say that when it comes to collegiate athletics. Your subscription gets you into all the sites. You can read all the message boards. I know the number one Oklahoma site, I think this came over in May. And a lot more are coming, have already come. And soon it will be the dominant force. So they do have a deal right now going through, I think, the end of August for a couple of months. Basically, you're getting a couple of months off. They're not going to keep doing these deals forever. They're not going to need to do these deals forever. So sign on now while you got a chance to do it. And last but not least, we have some wonderful sponsors of Wolfpacker Show. They're big fans of On3 themselves. Rogueshop.com. That's ROGUESHOP.com. Have all your natural cannabis needs. It's completely legal, safe, natural products. It may help you. Let's say you have some sleep deprivation. Maybe you got anxiety or chronic pain, disability issues. It could help you out. Never know. It might be able to help you out. Try it out. See if it helps you. They're on our message board. It's a husband and wife outfit. They will answer your questions on our message board. They will also have a live chat feature on their website with a real life human being, not some AI product, talking to you to kind of guide you into what might help you and where you could look to try, what to try, and all of that. So give them a look. Rogueshop.com. So got all that out of the way. 3-minute mark. You didn't have to sit too long for that. So let's get right to it. I'm with Jamie Shaw, long-time buddy, long-time friend of the show, national recruiting analyst for On3 now. We go way back to prior network days, and nobody been questioning the transfer portal like On3 between Jamie Shaw and Joe Tipton. You really didn't need to go anywhere else for any kind of information. And Jamie knows a lot about these NC State newcomers. There are a lot of them. 6. So 5 left and 6 came in. So we'll get to them individually here in a second, but I want to start big picture, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of grade would you give NC? You don't have to give me an actual grade, but in general, what kind of grade would you give NC State coming out of it?
I thought they did great. I thought they did great in the portal. I think they added depth. I think they got players that kind of goes back to what Kevin Keats had so much success with coming up the ranks, at Wilmington, first couple of years at NC State. I think they got back into those type of players. Keats loves a good combo guard, a guy that can, as he says, can boogie a little bit. And they got some good guards in this class. They got a depth of bigs. Maybe the biggest that they had this offseason, was the players that they actually got to return, that they can kind of put some stuff around as well. But I think there's a lot of optimism. I think there's a lot of good things on the horizon. I thought NC State did a really good job in the portal this year.
In your opinion, taking 6 transfers in a year. Now, a lot of this is kind of the way it's set up this year with the roster and everything. And a lot of these guys, we'll talk about them soon, but Jaden Taylor, Ben Middlebrooks, Muhammad Diarra, as the train gets ready to roll past the office here.
That's the NC State basketball program getting ready to coming for you.
Yeah, it's either that or every time I record a podcast in this office, that train comes by. It's like clockwork.
They got the tracker on you.
Yes. A lot of these guys they got coming in are multiple year transfers, which I think is sometimes lost a little bit, that you maybe won't have to do this every year. But any concerns about having to bring in literally half your roster out of the transfer portal?
So not really, not necessarily, because I think they did a good job of kind of finding what I had one college coach call the honeypot of guys that you get that are experienced, but also have multiple years to go, so you can get them into your system and grow with them. 2 years ago, the NC State program was not very good, and they had to do a lot of house cleaning, getting rid of players and flipping the roster. They did a great job of that in year one, but they did that with a whole bunch of guys, or with older guys that only had a year left. They had 1 year of Taquavion, Jarkel, so they continued to house clean that roster, usher those guys out who proved might not have been good enough, and they're getting new blood in. And this new blood they're getting, they're kind of stacking classes solidly well. They got older guys, but they're getting guys that, have multiple years left. They got a couple freshmen coming in, they're good. They got a couple transfers that are coming in, that are good. And they're building their roster. They're building a roster that can compete, which, as we saw 2 years ago, the players they had just couldn't.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that, not to pick on anybody, but you look at where some of those players that you talked about, where they had to turn over the roster, look where they are now.
Yep.
And you start seeing, you know what, this was the genesis of why all this had to be made. You can see it right then and there. Let's get to these players, and we'll go with the recency bias, but also I thought it was kind of most important to get a point guard. Yeah. They ended up with Michael O'Connell from Stanford. Maybe not the name that probably you would have thought of at the beginning of the transfer portal, or maybe not the sexiest name out there on the transfer portal point guard. I kind of had two thoughts on this. You can tell me if I'm way off or if I'm on track. One, I didn't think the pickings at point guard were that great, especially as the transfer portal unfolded. And two, you really needed somebody. You didn't want to be in a position where you're hoping that a Breon Pass or an LJ Thomas or a Trey Parker are ready to play 30 minutes a game. And you did at least find somebody that for 3 years has been playing 25, 30 minutes per game at a Power 5 level at Stanford. Maybe not the best team in the Pac-12 over the past 3 years. He didn't produce lights out numbers, but he was primarily their starting point guard. So you gave yourself a floor, in other words, at the point guard position that is elevated from what it would have been otherwise. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, I think that the point guard position, what Keats does at that spot will be very interesting, because in years past, he's kind of put two combo guards together, guys who can create offense. Now, that offense might not have been for other people with Jarkel and Taquavion. It could have been offense, but they were able to create offense off the bounce, get the team in the sets, and make some things happen. And it'll be interesting to see how he plays that out, because I thought that as the season progressed, I thought LJ Thomas kind of started to get into a little bit of a groove as the season progressed. So it'll be interesting to see what type of jump that he makes kind of this offseason coming into the season, what he's capable and able to do. But O'Connell brings you a guy that has experience at the high major level. Just like you said, he's an older guy. He's somebody that you can trust. He's somebody that you can trust to make decisions, to make proper decisions on the ball, and to make everybody happy surrounding him. I'm not sure Keats has had a point guard kind of like that in his time. But it's the type of point guard that can settle things down. There were multiple times, even last year in the good year that they had, where things just got chaos, up and down, and you didn't want to burn a timeout or anything like that. This could be a situation where, a veteran point guard like O'Connell comes in and slows things down a little bit, run some offense, gets you into sets, and is able to kind of capitalize the strengths of the entirety of the team.
What would the point guard market like this? I mean, there were certainly some very quality point guards available, but if you were in the market for a point guard at portal, what kind of market did it end up being?
Well, there were a lot of guards that entered. The ones that it ended up being were more combo guards.
Yeah.
And they were very high-level guys. They were all older. So, I mean, the market ended up being solid. but a lot of the times you see that recruitments in the transfer portal happen very quickly. Yeah. So there's a pretty good understanding of situations quickly after the people get into the portal. But there was a solid point guard market in the portal. Nothing extravagant, but there were some good ones that did enter.
Yeah, let's talk about the couple combo guards. I think they're probably more naturally suited to be off the ball. But as you mentioned with Kevin Keats' style, you don't have to be a classic point guard. I think really you just got to be able to dribble the ball and handle the basketball. But they did get DJ Horn last year of eligibility. I think he might be the only one that only had 1 year of eligibility left. Scored a lot of points in college basketball. And he was actually, if you go back and look at his games at Arizona State, who, by the way, won a game in the NCAA tournament, he had 2 really big games in the NCAA tournament. He's also a local kid. I think he's from Cary. And then you also got Jaden Taylor, who I think may have been lost because he was so early. He was the first one to commit. But I'm not so sure. He might be the headliner of the leading scorer at Butler. Only a sophomore, just used his one-time transfer. So you can probably theoretically bet on having him for 2 more years. Big East basketball, that translates to the ACC, I feel like. If you're the leading scorer of a team in the Big East, that should translate to the ACC. Just your thoughts on those 2 guys added to the backcourt.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. They're both guys who have experience averaging double-figure points at a high major program. Right. DJ Horn, he's about 6'1", as you mentioned. He's from Cary. He graduated actually from Trinity Christian in Fayetteville. Transferred down there for his last year, which is, produced Dennis Smith, which produced Greg Gant, and among others. So bringing him back home, that helps the fan base, but it also, he fits what Keats likes. He likes those guards that can score. Yeah. Horn can go get a bucket. Horn can really shoot the ball well, stretch the floor. Taylor, a little bit more of a downhill guy, but he's got some toughness to him. He's got the ability to be able to get into the teeth of the defense and make a play. He was, as you said, Butler's leading scorer. Now, Butler wasn't a great team this past year, right. But he took it on as a sophomore to be able to be the guy to go get buckets. And there's a lot of value in that. Now he's going to be a year older. He's got that experience. He's going to be a year older now, coming in as a junior with good positional size, with some confidence, getting into a new system with Kevin Keats that just gives guards incredible amounts of confidence. Right. To be able to go and do their thing. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to, Taylor speaking, if he's able to develop the jump shot, if he's able to become more of a threat there. But I agree with you. I think there's a very good chance that he could come in and be kind of a guy. I don't think this team's going to have anybody that has, 18, 19, 20 points a game. But I think they're going to have a depth of guys that go from 8 to 13 points with any one night, one of 5 or 6 guys going for 20.
I think one of the big questions, too, it kind of leads to the next player we talk about, is how is this lineup going to get put together? O'Connell's probably the only one you could say was a true point guard, from what I've gathered. Most people seem to think Taylor and Horn would be better as shooting guards and being allowed to do their things and scoring. You do have Casey Morsell, by the way. I know he's in the NBA draft, but I don't think anybody anticipates he's staying in the NBA draft. Although the transfer portal window has closed, he is a graduate, so you can't rule out graduate transfers can hop in at any time, if I'm right. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that'll be the case with Casey Morsell. That's 4 guards for 2 or 3 spots on the floor. It'll be, and then you add in MJ Rice, who's the freshman, blue chip recruit, McDonald's All-American. Didn't get a ton of playing time at Kansas. It was hard to get playing time at Kansas at his position. When you look at their roster, I mean, they had the Grady Dick, I think was his name, that going to be a potential lottery pick, one and done. You had All-American. You had the transfer from Texas Tech. You had the Big 12 Player of the Year. So kind of going to have a hard time getting playing time. But, he's in that mix too. Do you mentioned it, keep going back to what he did before. Do you foresee, and talk about MJ Rice a little bit, and do you foresee potentially 4-guard lineup with MJ Rice in the torn Dorn role?
To take from a football term that I hear a lot, I think Keats has this team. They're multiple guys. Guys can play multiple positions, and you can put different looks on the floor. MJ Rice can go anywhere from the 2 to the 4 position, and be able to run certain types of sets in offense. O'Connell could come in and run the team, set the team right. You have Horn and Taylor who can come in and kind of both play combo guards. Whoever gets the ball gets it across half court and gets the team in the sets, and they get their pick and roll stuff. And then Morcell, he's a calming factor on the team. He's a veteran presence. He's a tough guy. He's the one that they gravitate toward kind of in the locker room, and he's a very good defender. So you have a whole bunch of different things that you could do with this team with possibly 2, if not 3 guys who can handle the point spot. Multiple guys, you can have Taylor or Rice or Morcell that can play the 2 or the 3, and then even Rice going up to possibly some 4 as well. So he's able to play the hot hand. He's put together a group of guys that can give you different looks, that can morph, be fluidly between position and position, and he's put them together to guys that can do multiple things on the floor. And it's even one thing where if you have MJ Rice kind of at the 4, you have 4 guys that can initiate the offense, the guys that can get you into the half court set and get you going, and then spread the floor out, get downhill and make a play. To be able to do that from 4 separate positions, that's super valuable right now in the game. So I think that there are spots where they can go 4 guards on the floor. I think there's going to be spots where they just go 2 guards and play bigger. I think there's going to be, but we know with Keats what he did early on, Torn Dorn, those types of guys. Having that 4 position that can be that can be a threat with the ball in his hands, that seems to be when his teams have traditionally played the best.
What do you think would be realistic for MJ Rice? I mean, if you're an NC State fan, what do you think is kind of real? He did not produce a lot at Kansas, partially because of what they had on their roster. And when you're playing in the Big 12 last year, you really don't have a lot of time to give out minutes to a freshman trying to find himself. The Big 12 was like NCAA tournament every day. You're going to shrink that rotation to your main guys. So knowing that, but also knowing what his potential was coming out of high school, what people thought of him, what do you think could be realistic for MJ Rice next year?
The talent has never been the question with MJ Rice. He's incredibly talented. I remember the first time I saw him, he was in 7th grade. Came to one of our camps. And he was a big physical presence, but he had skill and ability. He was able to process the game well, and he just kept on growing and improving. Talent's never been the issue with MJ. His biggest thing will be getting on the floor. And I'm not saying like sitting the bench. I'm just getting his body right, getting his body ready, and able to be on the floor and playing at a capable level. If his health is there, I think there's a lot of things that Keats can do with him. I think there's a lot of upside that he has with what Keats likes to do, with being able to play those multiple positions with skill and being a threat with the ball in his hands. So I think there's a lot of upside, but the biggest thing with him, the biggest factor with MJ is getting the health to 100%. So he can get in there and, produce and play.
It should be noted, I think he tore his ACL, what was it, junior year in high school, maybe? I can't remember exactly what it was. It kind of set him back then. Up front, I've kind of said basically what NC State has done is they've traded an injured Dusan Mahorcic, who you weren't sure what his availability was going to be at the start of the season. You traded Ebenezer Dewana. You've taken those 2, and you traded them for Ben Middlebrooks out of Clemson and Muhammad Diarra out of Missouri. Mm-hmm. I personally think that might be where one of the real upgrades. Ebenezer Dewana had a lot of physical traits you might like, but you have to acknowledge the skill set was limited.
Yes.
And could you count on Mahorcic? He had the same knee injury twice, and he just underwent a second knee surgery.
Yep.
Ben Middlebrooks looks like a guy who could play. He was playing behind P.J. Hall. But, you also keep in mind that State has D.J. Burns back. So you're really looking for somebody to give you 15, 20 minutes to allow D.J. Burns to be the best D.J. Burns can be for 20 minutes. And then Diarra, you look at the rebound, and in particular in SEC play, it looks like it could translate over. I think he was averaging like 5 rebounds in 12 minutes a game in SEC only games for Missouri. I think that's an upgrade myself. I kind of want to. What are your thoughts? Is that an even trade, an upgrade, or you have concerns about flipping those two for?
No, I think both of those guys. I agree with you. I think they are upgrades. I think what you get with Middlebrooks is somebody who, he's a tough guy. He's a big physical presence. But in high school, he showed that he can shoot a little bit too. So we all know with DJ Burns, he's really at his best in that kind of 20, 22-minute range.
Yeah.
Both of these guys are able to come on the bench. You can even maybe slide Middlebrooks to some foursome, playing beside Burns or whatnot if you want to go big or if you need to go big. Right. We had Duke last year going with 2 7-footers and all that type of stuff. So if you need to combat that at times, you have that type of capability as well because there's an inside-out factor. Get DJ Burns on the block, Middlebrooks can stretch it out a little bit. Now he didn't show really at Clemson that he can shoot it, all that stuff. But in high school, and he came out a year early as well. To Clemson also, there was a capable shot there. And then, the transfer coming in from Missouri, as you said, he really did a good job rebounding. He's a guy that kind of just see ball, get ball, go get it. And there's a huge value in that with somebody that can end opposition's possessions and then maybe elongate your possessions at times with offensive rebounds and just playing tough, there's a lot of value in knowing who you are and playing tough. As we said earlier, DJ Burns is at his best in that 18 to 22 minute range, hopefully pushing the ceiling on that. You have 18 other minutes on the floor of somebody that's going to need to come in and give you something. One guy can really rebound. The other guy's a tough guy on the block to do. And you can even play both of those guys together as well. So there's, again, multiple. There's some versatility that you're able to do with different looks. And guys that you don't have to worry about. And they're also threats. As you said, Ebenezer Dwarma last couple of years, you knew what you're going to get out of him, but he was a big body, a physical presence, a foul. He'd get 5 fouls. He might get a block shot and all that stuff, but he was not a threat at all on offense.
Right.
They could lag off of him. They could stay toward the rim, do all that. With these other guys coming in, more so Middlebrooks, he might be able to draw some defense out a little bit, and he's going to be a threat to at least be able to score. Even if they dump it down on the block, he's going to be a threat. They have to guard him. Yeah. So I think that, these are good ads.
Yeah. And the added benefit, too, they both have 2 years of eligibility left. So what you're talking about, it's pretty clear Kevin Keatts now wants 3 big men on his roster every year. And I think that stems from the not-so-good year you were talking about where he lost Manny Bates 1 minute into the season, and he had to go through the whole year with Jalen Gibson and Ebenezer DeWiner as his post players. That was not a desirable situation. So, I think he's looking for 3 quality bigs on the roster. Now, this puts you in a position where you go out and maybe get a recruit. And you have a Middlebrooks and the DR. They'll both be seniors next year. Get a recruit who hopefully will be patient enough to wait a year, which is never a given nowadays.
Sure.
And you got a little bit more roster management with your situation. 5 guys left the program. I'm going to list them all. Jack Clark, headed to Clemson. The aforementioned Ebenezer DeWiner is headed to Georgia Tech, hometown school. The aforementioned Dusan Mahorcic, who got an extra season of eligibility. That came late. I think NC State was kind of already committed to filling his spot. Not necessarily sure if they could rely on Mahorcic. Greg Gant, who you talked about, headed to UNC Asheville. I think that's a good spot for Greg Gant. And Isaiah Miranda. Hardly knew you. Spent a semester on NC State's campus. And then he went into the transfer portal. I think he's in the NBA draft still, too, technically. But obviously he's looking for a new college. How significant are the losses? I mean, one guy never played. We just talked about how DeWiner was limited. Greg Gant, a lot of energy, a lot of a very personable young man. I think a lot of you probably know Greg well. I never met anybody who didn't like Greg. And then hobbled Dusan Mahorcic, and then Jack Clark. I would argue Jack Clark might be the one you're looking at and saying, yeah, that one might be nice to have.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Exactly what I was going to say. I mean, with Jack, his analytics were really high. Now, he didn't make the shots that possibly thought would going ahead, but there's a defensive versatility there, and his offensive analytics were pretty high. I'm going to be interested to see how he fits with Brad Brownell and how his season goes this year, because there's a lot of stuff in there, and a lot of, as he's never going to be a leading scorer. He's never going to be a first, second option.
Right.
But he's a talented player, a starter for a good team type of guy. Dwarma, you want to have – he's a physical presence. You can get 8 minutes out of him and know what you're going to get from him. Like you said, if he's your fourth option as a big, he's a solid player. Mahorsic wasn't really ever on the floor. Greg Gant, again, he's another one, just injury after injury after injury. This kind of just, as you said, he's a great locker room presence, good guy and all that type of stuff. And Miranda has immense upside. I don't blame Keats at all for taking a chance on him and seeing if they can get it to work out and all that type of stuff. But it seemed both parties kind of wanted to move on and go on to greener pastures. He didn't play at all last year, so hard to be a loss if you're not on the floor. Same with him, Mahorsic, and then Greg on and off and all that type of stuff too. So those guys moving on allowed for roster spots to open up. And they did a really good job in the portal filling those roster spots.
Yeah, I had one source told me one of the issues they faced last year is after Mahorsic got injured, you basically had a good starting five with Burns, Clark, Morcell, Joyner, Smith. But your 6 through 8, your 6 through 9 was rolling the dice. Occasionally, Ernest Ross would pop up and give you a really good game. Occasionally, Greg Gant would give you some good moments. Occasionally, LJ Thomas would knock down a shot for you or a beyond pass. But the depth was probably not at the level they wanted it to be. Some of those guys are younger, inexperienced, still finding their way. And I think that's maybe where NC State also improved, as we talked about. I think the depth with this team, maybe there's not a Joyner-Smith combination in the group, but once you get past that first 5, you still a lot to feel good about, especially if some of these guys coming back, like a Pass and a Ross and a Thomas, take a step forward, or that the Parker boys are able to give you some minutes as freshmen coming in. So I really feel like the depth, if you could speak on it, the depth of NC State might be one area also that's much improved next year.
For sure. And, that's something that kind of we touched on a little bit earlier as we were going through this. Last year they were expecting, I don't know the numbers. I'd probably say 60 to 70% of their points came from 3 players between DJ Jarkel and Terquavion. It might have even been upwards of 80. I don't know. I think there's going to be a whole lot more, while there's more depth, I think there's going to be a whole lot more balance with this team as well. I think you could see 5+ guys that average between 8 and 13 points per game. I think you have 5 or 6 guys on this team that could go for 20 points on any given night, depending on the matchup and if they're hot. And I think that there's different lineups that Keats is able to play because there's positional versatility within the group. You can go big, you can go small, you can spread it out, you can pack it in. You can do different defensive sets. You have guys that have solid length, and you have experience. So I think along with the depth that there is, I think there's more balance to this team. And I think there's also more fluidity and more of what they're capable of doing depending on playing matchups.
Yeah. Real quick to kind of wrap it up, you wrote a piece on winners and losers for On 3, the transfer portal. I'm just going to limit it to the ACC and test your memory recall, because that's going to come up with real quick. I'm just going to throw a few teams I thought did really well in the portal. I thought Clemson, considering let's say PJ Hall comes back. If PJ Hall comes back, I think Clemson really put themselves in a position where they schedule a little bit better in the non-conference next year. Could really be an NCAA tournament team. I think Virginia did a sneaky good job in the portal. NC State fans aren't going to want to hear this, but I think North Carolina did some nice things in the transfer portal. Wake Forest.
North Carolina's going to be interesting. North Carolina's going to be interesting with how they did. The best thing that they possibly might have done would be Caleb Love leaving. Not saying that he's one thing or the other. I think that ship had run its course at North Carolina, and I think that possibly Hubert Davis can do his best with Caleb Love somewhere else. I think Caleb Love might be able to do his best somewhere else as well.
Yeah.
So that could have been the biggest pickup. We'll see. They lost a lot of guys that were highly touted coming out of high school to the portal that just couldn't crack the rotation. But they added depth. They added some shooting as well. I love, again, as you said, what Clemson did, getting Hunter to come back at the point guard and adding the shooting around him with Gerard and the other shooter from out west. And then Jack Clark, I think, adds versatility in that 3-4 position to be able to defend. And obviously, their whole thing is going to be surrounding with P.J. Hall coming back, as you said.
Wake Forest, by the way, intrigued me too. I don't know if Efton Reed will be available to play right away, but I kind of look at it too from who's coming back at those schools. Wake Forest took a huge hit with Clinton deciding him to stick to the NBA, but I really feel like a few of these teams that just missed the tournament, Clemson, North Carolina, Wake Forest, might all be in position to be better next year in competing for the NCAA. And then on the flip side of that, Notre Dame, that might be a tough situation next year. I'm not, we'll see how Louisville looks next year in year 2. But any teams that you kind of think really need to do a lot more work when there's not a whole lot more to have in the portal?
It'll be interesting. I think Florida State, they're coming off of a down year for Leonard Hamilton. And they lost their leading scorer. I think they lost 2 of their 3 leading scorers. I think Caleb Mills might have been their second or third leading scorer as well. So they lost 2 of their 3 leading scorers. And then they got Nickelberry coming in. They got a couple. So it'll be. I think they still have some work they need to do. Florida State does. We'll see with Miami. They had such good guards, but with Miller not coming back and Wong possibly leaving as well. Isaiah Wong, that's a lot to replace there. We'll see with Syracuse as well, losing Joe Girard, losing Jesse Edwards, two of the better players in the transfer portal. There's been some good early returns from Red Autry, and he's going to get players, I believe. But it'll also be interesting to see kind of how he plays and what he does. Will he stay with the stuff that Boeheim did? Will he put his own stamp on the program and what he does moving forward? So there's some questions there. You mentioned Wake Forest earlier. I really like what they did. I think they bolstered their guards. The guard from Central Michigan coming in, as well as Hunter Salas. I think they did a really good job. And then Steve Forbes' success rate in the in the transfer portal has been so high. You almost give them the benefit of the doubt. But I think they did a really good job, as you said, bolstering what they have too. Georgia Tech.
A lot of guys.
We will see. Again, they weren't very good last year, just like Louisville, just like Florida State. So there's a lot of room to add talent, regardless.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. But entry state is at 13 scholarship players. So I think they're done. I got the only minor hiccup left. Now, it would be a minor hiccup, but if Casey Morsell decides to withdraw from the NBA draft, but look at options, I don't think that's going to happen. But that's really all that's left because the portal window has closed. He's the only one that has graduated from NC State. So been a fun couple of months, been a long couple of months, but I think we know what the NC State roster looks like. Jamie, thank you very much for breaking these guys down for our listeners. Really quick reminder, please rate and review this podcast wherever you may listen to your podcast. Also, give us a watch or follow on YouTube. Leave a comment. You can say which one of Jamie or I needs a haircut.
That answers me.
We'll see about that. I'm risking mullet territory with the way my hair is curling in the back. Also, be sure to sign up to the website on on3.com. We got a lot of good stuff coming. A lot of realignment chatter. Is the ACC going to blow up? We'll see. We'll find out. And then last but not least, please check out our sponsors, rogueshop.com. That's ROG as in girl, UESHOP.com for all your natural, safe, and legal cannabis needs. Where it helps you with some of your anxiety issues. Maybe you have trouble sleeping at night. Sometimes that can go hand in hand. Maybe you're suffering from some kind of arthritis or some kind of chronic pain, old football wound, something like that. Small company, small business, husband and wife outfit. They got real human beings ready to talk to you on our message board, on their website, point you in the right direction, give you some products to try, and it won't hurt. It can't hurt. So give them a check out at rogueshop.com.
Hey, and one more thing too, Matt, I wanted to add in there. I know that the NC State market's kind of saturated, but I know that you guys, you're watching this, you don't have to be subscribing to the site or whatever, but y'all are super lucky to be having the Wolfpacker here. What they put into, I know firsthand because I talk to Matt weekly about all this stuff, and I'm sure he does the same thing on the football side as well. But they put a lot in effort into making sure that the subscribers, that their fan base, that the people that read their stuff get the most information possible out there. So y'all are really, really fortunate to be able to get in there. So I urge you, please do subscribe to the website and help them out, and go ahead and do all that, because they're some of the best in the market. They're some of the best in the country in the passion and love that they have for the fan base and the readers.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll pass that along to Ethan too. He'll be thrilled to hear that. So, Jamie, thank you, and thanks for listening.
Thank you, Matt.